Unfortunately, as with a lot of mobility-centric builds, this alone isn't enough to make them competitively viable.
It's a shot.
In fact, even with their above-average slithering speed, they're usually still too slow to chase.
Energy.
Unorthodox reactions.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another Unorthodox reactions. We're back again with another Unorthodox intro. I'm really annoyed he keeps stealing my bit. So
what do you mean? This is my bit. I start. I say unorthodox reactions.
You don't start.
And then you freaking start.
Real ones will know. Real ones will know. All right then. What we watching today, Breeder?
We got TierZoo, the snake tier list. We're about to rank some snakes.
I'm scared of all snakes.
I'm looking at number 1 somewhere around here.
Wow! Talking about top 10.
Alright, let's get it.
Should have been like, where's KD? Where's KD?
Oh!
Dead. Dead. Kill. That's a kill.
Snakes are one of the most feared classes in the game, with a number of powerful builds and a vast array of uniquely lethal abilities. However, some of these strategies have clearly been more successful than others. So in this video, which was sponsored, some of these strategies have clearly been more successful than others. So in this video, which was sponsored by Curiosity Stream,
ooh, I love Curiosity Stream.
To see which builds rank highest. But before we get into looking at specific snake builds, let's do an overview of the basic attributes and special abilities the snake faction has access to, as well as a quick rundown of the history of the snake faction. So, snakes are one of the newer factions in the game, joining the game's roster during the latter part of the Mesozoic expansion. They began as a niche offshoot of the lizard faction that was specifically adapted to burrowing gameplay. And in order to best min-max for the most efficient burrowing, this player base eventually opted to completely drop the legs attribute. This ended up being a far more successful gambit than anyone could have anticipated, as it not only granted these lizards better burrowing ability, but also opened up a bunch of other strategies to them. While the snake build first hit the scene during a metagame dominated by dinosaurs, they didn't become a huge threat in the meta until after the main dinosaur powerhouses were banned in the KT balance patch. During this chaotic post-banwave meta, snake players experimented with some crazy builds, including the giant Titanoboa build. But while Have
you seen that one? Oh, it was freaking massive.
What do you mean it was massive? Like you
no, there was. I think there was this cave that kind of had like the skeleton or like the kind of tracks left behind by it. And the tracks were like massive. Like a human was standing next to it and he looked freaking tiny.
Bro, snakes are scary, man.
Titanoboa's giant size granted it short-term success. I think the strategies that the snake player base went on to specialize in are even more effective. Fast forward to today's meta, and snakes are one of the most successful predator factions in the game, owing this success to a handful of powerful, unique abilities. The most obvious of these is slithering, the snake's unique mobility option that it gained in.
Honestly, I think someone needs to take that away from them, you know, because that's actually cheating at this.
Yeah, you can't.
It makes them so freaking hard, especially when they blend them in the environment.
Exchange for losing its legs. At first glance, this might seem extremely limiting, as snakes cannot jump and move more slowly than they would if they could run. And while those are significant limitations, the ability to slither does open up a lot of other options to snake mains. Rather than jumping over barriers, snakes can oftentimes find a way to slither through them. This gives snakes access to a lot of areas of the map that are normally much more difficult to access, and means things like dens, nests, and other player-constructed bases are often less effective at keeping snake players out.
You came out of nowhere.
Parents is gone. I've been waiting here for like 2 hours.
Also allows a comparatively large build to remain very close to the ground and benefit from the stealth bonus of even the shortest grass and foliage. Despite not having claws, snakes make for highly effective climbing.
Ultimate stealth mode. Can never get out of stealth mode. Never get out of stealth mode.
24/7 stealth.
Making it very difficult to ever truly get out of reach of a snake. Still, as a rushdown option, slithering tends to be too slow to reliably catch up to other players. So while snakes may not have the ability to chase you down, they've spec'd their movement kit to ensure that nowhere is ever truly safe. And if you let your guard down, they'll be poised to capitalize on that. A snake's basic strike is a little on the weak side for such a dangerous predator. Their bites can't deal that much damage on their own and are easily blocked by armor. It's for this reason that snakes tend to spec into various venom effects to infuse their bites with. Snake venom can have a variety of status effects, which we'll get into more as we progress through the tier list.
Speaking of snakes, someone in the, I can't remember which Casual Geographic video it was, but someone in the comments section let us know that if the snake wasn't poisonous, then it'll probably most likely be one of the ones that kind of wrap around you to subdue you. So if they do get close enough to you, I think we were arguing about like if you could outrun it or something. So if they do get close enough to you to
not outrun the snake, how you can tell if a snake's poisonous and stuff. And you were like, I was like, I'm not just gonna let it bite me and be like, oh, guess you're not poisonous.
So the other way, if it's not poisonous, then yeah,
it'll wrap around.
It's likely gonna be the one that wrap around you to crush you.
Wouldn't it be weird if like a snake was just crawling up your leg, just trying to crush your leg?
The way I see it is normally like the ones that look kind of hench, most likely not poisonous.
Yeah,
and they just hench so they can friggin' break your bones.
In general, venom greatly increases the damage potential a snake can deal with its bite. Without this, many snakes would have no means of defense and would be completely helpless when caught out in the open.
But them raccoons were like on job.
Classes in the game.
I heard you bit my boy.
For that, let's get into the tier list.
The
lower tiers on this list
Can I just say, I love the way he does this, like, tier list of the different types of
Is your first time
animals. Yeah, this is my first time watching him.
I mean, this is my first time watching him, but I've seen like tier lists before.
I've seen tier lists before. I like the way he does it for like species. So, like, say like how they've evolved and how their different evolutions stacked up against the other ones and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
We should do that.
Of the snake faction known as colubrids.
That's a lot of research.
Snakes and contains almost every snake build in the game, except for the ones you're actually afraid of. Starting at the very bottom of this group, we have the garter snake, one of the weakest snake builds in the game. Data miners are actually unsure whether or not this build is venomous, but if it is, it's some of the weakest venom in the game. And with no other offensive abilities, the garter snake essentially only has favorable matchups against things far smaller than it, like frogs and mice. Because they're so vulnerable, garter snake players love to attack aquatic targets like tadpoles and small fish, but they have no actual ability to synergize with this playstyle, nor is it a particularly good swimmer, and therefore takes on considerable risk when they venture into the water. Snakes are also caught in an endless loop of wasting a ton of evolution points, evolving extreme toxin resistance to the poison of a specific newt build. This isn't very efficient, but I guess the garter snake needs to preserve its few favorable matchups. Next in F tier we have the racer snake. This is a snake build that put an above average number of evolution points into mobility, making it one of the fastest snake builds in the game. That's not really saying a lot given that snakes tend to have pretty poor movement speed, but credit where credit is due, this does give them a much better chance of dashing into cover when under attack.
But they're gliding through them rocks.
Unfortunately, as with a lot of mobility-centric builds, this alone isn't enough to make them competitively viable.
It's a shot.
In fact, even with their above-average slithering speed, they're usually still too slow to chase down many of their preferred attack targets. They're also worse climbers than most snakes, making them one of the few snakes that can be countered by simply climbing out of reach. In almost all cases, a snake's worst matchup is against birds, and unfortunately for the racer snake, speed usually isn't much use against a surprise aerial attack. Their lack of practical applications for their signature abilities plants them firmly in F tier for me.
Firmly.
Vine snake.
Next on the tier list, we have the vine snake. Now, there are many highly effective arboreal snake builds, and all things considered,
that's what you didn't see
isn't terrible. It's got great stealth.
But if it lived like, I don't know what habitat they normally live in.
Why?
No. Videos are recording. It's normal pause.
But I
was gonna say, I don't know what type of habitat they live in, but if they were smart, they would live in like the Amazon or something.
Why?
You would never be able to see them unless they want
they eat?
What do you mean?
Are they gonna eat?
They can hunt. That's what I'm saying. Even their prey wouldn't be able to see them.
Though.
Yeah, they can still hunt like small prey and stuff.
They're F category.
Like the same as I think
this time it was good, but it was a fail. That's what he's saying. Like, it's cool. Let's see.
Let's see.
It's a fail.
And is an excellent climber. But I mean, just look at this thing. With the lowest HP and
It
defensive
looks like
stats of any
Leaf.
snake, this build folds to absolutely any attack.
That's a freaking
Vine
eagle. You
snakes
can't
and
believe
trust
that. Come on
He
now.
just said it folds.
It's an eagle.
Crumbles.
You told me what snake at
Crumbles-
that size can freaking
Crumbles
stand up
under
to an
pressure.
eagle.
He said no defense whatsoever. It can't guard a lick.
That's his fault. He has the ability to be able to.
It's not. That's like Man United's defense. You score every time.
No, that's the manager's fault then, because they should have figured that out. Like, they should have taught it better to be able to, like, defend.
Spend all that money just to look cute. Just to look cute amongst the leaves.
There's no way a hawk should be able to see that snake from the sky if it wants to be hidden.
Hey.
Survival to their above
Look at
average
it.
stealth stat. But if that fails,
Yeah.
and the snake is discovered,
Look
they
at it, look
resort
at
to
it.
intimidation.
Just because it opens its
Their
mouth.
intimidation tactic consists of sticking out their brightly colored tongue as a warning. Much like with the blue-tongued skink, I don't consider this to be a particular.
Who the frick trained this snake?
You know the blue-tongued skink?
No.
It's got blue tongue to make it seem like it's venomous or poisonous, but it's not actually. It's just a
Kind
big
of like
stunt.
how frogs change their color.
Yeah, it's just a big stunt.
But who trained the snake? Like, they didn't do a good job at attack, did they?
really effective defensive display.
So we had to see that.
Especially when
They
this
couldn't
warning
see
is
it.
backed by some of the weakest venom in the snake faction. Definitely not F tier due to its decent.
Wouldn't it have been funny if
Wow.
the frog just bounced? This is like, oh yeah, go
With
for
nothing
me.
else going for it, it's stuck in D tier.
See, it's D tier, not F.
Next in D tier, we have the tiger
Just about
keelback.
Bro, he
This
gliding
snake
through
build
that.
breaks the mold when it comes to
river.
toxic strategies in snakes, as rather than dumping all of its evolution points into venom, the keelback also allocates some of its resources into becoming
what is
poisonous,
that?
meaning that they can inflict
Oh,
the
it's
toxic
poisonous
status effect
itself.
both when dealing damage and when taking damage.
Oh, okay.
This
See, now that's
extra
how you do
defensive ability
defense.
Definitely raises the keelback's ranking compared to most colobrid snakes. However, overall, it's still not that great. Both their venom and their poison aren't all that potent, and it's possible that going all in on one of these strategies might have been the better play in the long run. Still, the keelback strategy does mitigate one of the colobrid faction's main weaknesses though, which is that they have a hard time using their venom defensively. Many colobrids, including the vine snake and keelback, are venomous. This is useful because, I mean, how else would a snake barely thicker than a piece of spaghetti deal any damage, right? The problem is, colobrids lack the efficient venom delivery abilities found in the more dangerous snake builds. Their fangs are located at the back of their mouths, and these fangs don't actually inject venom. The venom is just kind of part of their saliva, so to deal any damage with it, they need to really chew on their target for a good
Whoever
chunk of
trained
time.
the snake did not
As
do
you
a
might
good job.
expect, this makes individual strikes from most venomous colobrids quite harmless, as they don't contain much venom per hit, and they also can't really use their fangs unless they get a really solid bite in. So the
I
keelback's
love the
poison
sound
does sort of
effects.
cover for this weakness, which is great, and for that it gets to the top of D tier. However, a defensive poison is by no means the only way to mitigate the drawbacks of having rear fangs, as we'll see as we move out of the low tier and into mid tier.
A, B,
you
C,
doing?
D. A, B, C.
No, it goes D, C, B, A, S.
Oh yeah, S. Oh yeah. I was really thinking, what is that? I was like, there's something there.
At the bottom of C tier, we have the
Boomslang.
Bumslang, the most
Bumslang.
famous snake build from the colobrid faction. This snake kind of just does everything the vine snake does, but better. It's an excellent climber and has great camouflage, but also packs a devastating bite with extremely overpowered venom for its tier in terms of potency.
Oh, snap.
And while it does
And
have rear
you're just
fangs,
casually
they're
there.
significantly larger than most colobrids.
Well, yeah,
With no gloves on.
I want to say he's a professional, but I guess
Hey,
he's really brave.
professionals.
I guess it's just that brave. But I was gonna say, as long as he holds his head still, I don't think he should be too worried.
But
But
its best adaptation is that the Blemslang can open its mouth far wider than most snakes, allowing it to deliver a venom-infused bite in spite of the unfavorable location of its
Ooh.
fangs. This allows the Blemslang to go toe-to-toe with high-tier builds like the Chameleon, as well as let it use its potent venom as a defensive threat rather than solely just a hunting tool. Now obviously this is still far from ideal. Its venom is quite slow acting, making it not that useful when under attack. In my opinion, the Blemslang is the perfect example of a snake that really just needs one or two more buffs to be a high tier build. But in its current state, it just doesn't quite get there.
King
Top of C
Snake.
tier, we have our last member of the colobrid faction.
How are you gonna
the
call
King
it King Snake and
The
it's
King
in
Snake
C
is a
tier?
large snake build with no venom-based abilities.
No
Instead,
venom.
this is the first Constrictor build on our
Constrictor,
list.
that's the word.
Constriction is a type of grappling attack that, when properly executed, results in a guaranteed KO, even on extremely large targets.
Yay!
Its main drawback
Oh.
is that this attack strategy is highly vulnerable to
How are
destruction.
you gonna try to do
A
this to
constrictor
another
player has
snake?
to be able to survive all counterattacks from its target while attempting to restrain it. So with that said, you'd think it'd be very difficult to use this technique against a venomous snake, right? Snakes are so flexible that it's very difficult to grapple them without giving them an easy opportunity to bite back. That's where the king snake's second ability, venom resistance, comes in.
Oh.
The ability to ignore all damage from a snake's venom makes the king snake's matchup
That's
against other
really
snakes
good.
horribly one-sided. Just for good measure, king snakes have high enough accuracy on their attacks that they tend to go for the head, which negates a snake's counterattack potential even further. This is about where the king snake's supremacy ends.
They literally said, "F you, other man." I'ma eat the
Forget
man.
this
Them. I'ma
other
eat
family
them.
members. I need to eat
Bro, what they really? What they can just eat other snakes?
other snakes. Yeah.
And their venoms, they're like, "Psh, what's that?
Oh, the nice drink to quench
Hey.
the thirst.
What's that? Hey, why you keep poking me? Why you
As the rest of its matchups are pretty standard for a snake, and with no venom of its own, it doesn't pose much of a threat to players it can't reliably immobilize in its coils. Luckily, there's a pretty simple change a constrictor build can make in order to increase the effectiveness of its constriction: size.
B tier.
Boas and pythons are the poster children for this type of strategy, being the only snake builds that can be properly classified as tanks. While technically these are two different factions, they are functionally extremely similar and both contain specific examples of highly effective tanky snakes.
Heaviest snake and
Although
longest
boas and pythons
snake.
have no venom, their large teeth and incredibly high physical
Freaking out.
stats make them more than a match for just about any player that challenges them directly. With their thick scales and huge
Including the
size,
tiger,
it's very
really?
difficult to defeat one of these in a 1v1 quickly.
But
Their
that
ability
is
to tank a lot of
freaking
hits during a
thick.
fight means that even extremely powerful builds like the tiger
Oh
are in for quite an
my
uphill battle
God,
if they
look at
choose to
that.
stand and fight. Well-statted builds with high defense and DPS, like the crocodilian factions, are easily overcome with brute strength once a boa or python uses their piercing fangs and powerful coils to trap
Bro, it's gonna take his time eating that crocodile. 'Cause that's a big job.
It's full for like a month after that.
Facts.
them in an infinite grab combo. Drawbacks to the constriction strategy are vulnerability to third-party attacks and the immense cost of failed kills. While many constrictors have the size required to challenge other large builds, going after too powerful a target can expend a disproportionate amount of HP compared to other snakes. As large builds are often more conspicuous, the most successful constrictor players will make good use of the camouflage ability.
Anaconda, here we
Boa
go.
faction, the most powerful build is without a doubt the Anaconda. These are among the heaviest of any snake and by far the tankiest, with an HP stat that renders most physical
Please don't
attacks
tell me they're
almost
poisonous.
negligible. While Anacondas are significantly less viable on land due to their greatly reduced speed on terrestrial maps, their mobility, stealth, and camouflage bonuses in the aquatic meta make them nearly unbeatable in that biome. Anacondas are capable of serious speed when their buoyancy abilities can counteract the limitations of their enormous size, making nearly any unsuspecting player who enters the water an easy target.
Oh,
Their eyes and
GG.
noses are oriented towards the top of their faces, allowing them to expend minimal
like a
energy when
crocodile.
camouflaged in aquatic vegetation, waiting for the perfect opportunity to carry out an ambush attack. Despite their formidable base stats and proficiency in highly specialized forms of gameplay, the fact that anacondas are only truly viable in aquatic environments limits their utility and places them squarely in B tier. The most
Burmese
competitive build in
python.
the python faction is the Burmese python. While many snake builds are competitively viable only on
That's the Myanmar python now. I play.
certain maps that suit their specialized abilities, Burmese pythons fit into more
Very
of a
good
jack-of-all-trades
artist.
playstyle and have sufficient mobility in aquatic, terrestrial, and arboreal biomes, in spite of their large size. Burmese pythons are therefore excellent generalist builds, and as seen with many other generalists, they have been causing serious disruption in servers that they weren't meant to be spawning in. Burmese pythons have totally destabilized the meta of the Florida Everglades, due mostly to the python's extremely one-sided matchup against non-social mammal builds, and a lack of the type of builds that normally keep the python player base in check.
That's where
Now,
we are.
thankfully, the current top tier of the Everglades is quite capable of defeating or repelling a python in single combat. But because the alligator's dominance is restricted to the aquatic zones, pythons essentially have complete control of the arboreal zone, which has led to a drastic reduction in players running mammal builds like the rabbit, raccoon, fox, and bobcat. While Burmese pythons come in at the top of B tier due to their versatility, their low speed stat and lack of venom makes higher tier snakes much more viable choices for most gameplay styles.
A
While some
tier.
snake
Here we
builds in
go.
lower tiers can use the Venom skill, placement in A tier or higher rides almost exclusively on choosing to dump them in.
Do you think any of the snakes in F? Okay, you would beat all the snakes in the F tier, right?
I mean, should do, yeah.
Should do. I'd say like I might just lose. I don't know.
You never know.
They're not
They're
venomous.
still poisonous.
What about D?
I think one of the ones in F tier is poisonous.
Nah, not deadly.
What
about D?
It'll still give you a bad day. Anyone that's as soon as it gets to the point where they become poisonous, then yeah, I'm out.
Deadly, then you're out.
Yeah.
I think I can fight up to B. You know, I think I can kill a B.
Good luck at that. I'll see in the afterlife. Okay.
I'm dead. I'm joking.
I'll stop at F.
What? Your voice?
I'm
No. I'm fighting C.
Wait, where was the leaf snake?
That's the D.
I'm stopping D.
Where's that little boy? Where was he? Yeah, I'm going there. Yeah, I can take him. Dash him off the tree.
Majority of evolution points into maximizing venom efficiency and delivery methods. Members of the Viper class dominate the A tier. Among the most feared builds in the game,
He's
Vipers
done
have
for.
a variety of special offensive and sensory skills that help compensate for their generally low defense
The
stats.
tongue is creepy.
Their long, hollow fangs are placed at the front of their mouths and can pierce most armor to deliver lethal doses of venom. But
He's
one
already
drawback to the
dead,
destroying
relax.
toxins used by most builds in this group is that they can take a while to immobilize players. Most Viper builds also spec into the infrared heat sensing ability, making them extremely powerful nocturnal ambush attackers and compensating for their lack of
Oh,
speed.
frick. That's
Some
terrible.
members of the Viper faction tack on tail adaptations too, for access to the intimidation and luring abilities.
I did not see
These
that. It
perks
was
are minor
blends
compared
in.
to the raw offensive potential. Coming in at the bottom
Gamboon.
tier are Gaboon Vipers, combining the highest defense stat of any venomous build with near unbeatable stealth and an incredibly high strike speed.
But have you seen any flat-headed snake? You know, like the ones that have like a Dorito-shaped head?
No, I don't
I
know.
kind of like the look of them ones. Them ones are cool.
I
Despite
don't know,
their
maybe.
bulky appearance, Gaboon Vipers are almost invisible to spot during gameplay.
Oh,
and are
kinda like him.
notorious for destroying unsuspecting players due to the sheer volume of venom delivered during attack, despite their relatively underpowered toxicity compared to other Vipers.
Is that a
With the
vulture?
longest fangs of any Viper, they can deal significant physical piercing
God.
damage in addition to any toxic effects caused by the venom. They conserve energy by remaining motionless when not in combat, and are rather difficult to provoke
Is that
into
the head?
unnecessary confrontation. While Gaboon Vipers are an excellent choice for ambush-based play
see
in
that.
jungle maps, their lack of versatility and low aggression means they can be easily outmaneuvered by other builds.
That boy fat. Bro, look at that.
Aggression
He's stocky.
Yeah, he's 8, bro. That's why he's coming after.
outmaneuvered by other builds.
What you got?
Cottonmouths rank slightly
Cottonmouth.
higher in A tier due to their rare ability to use the skill set of the Viper class effectively in the aquatic realm. As the only Viper build in the game with aquatic adaptations, their potent venom and fishhook-shaped fangs make them incredibly effective at farming out fish and frog players for easy XP. This build specs into the caudal luring ability.
That snake has good taste. That's a nice tasting fish, bro. Bro, that's a good tasting fish. The name escapes me now. It's annoying because I know it's such an easy name to remember.
You cook it.
Yeah. Well, not raw,
He's not
obviously.
cooking it. He's not cooking it.
Yeah, but I'm still saying
Imagine he
it
just
still
whipped it in the
tastes
kitchen. He
good.
was like,
ability at lower levels, allowing them to quickly become competitive and shed this ability at higher levels in favor of better camouflage. Cottonmouths are also relatively tanky and escape many combat situations by using intimidation tactics.
freaking hell.
Their dominance in aquatic maps makes them able to occasionally overcome more competitive generalist builds, but this is limited by biome and therefore not useful during the majority of gameplay.
Majority of gameplay. Rattlesnake.
tier is
How did
rattlesnake.
rattlesnake make it so far? Oh,
Best
they're
suited
highly
for desert and
venomous,
forest biomes.
poisonous, I should say.
These snakes combine a variety of overpowered special abilities with well-allocated base stats. Rattlesnakes are highly capable builds for ambush-based stealth play due to their ability to create thermal maps of other players in low-visibility situations, which makes them one of the most effective counters for mammal players with the night vision ability. Instead of risking health by grappling with other players, Rattlesnakes deliver a lethal amount of venom in one quick strike,
I'm out.
and then use their prey tracking ability to find them after they've succumbed to toxic status effects.
Very good.
One major advantage for rattlesnake players is the highly effective rattle intimidation technique, which allows them to scare off more powerful challengers without wasting venom or risking serious damage. While rattlesnakes sit at the top of A tier due to their relatively well-rounded stats among members.
So when I hear the rattle, I know I'm not fighting. I know I'm not fighting. That's not for me, boy.
I think they normally like live around deserts from what I understand.
Australia.
Yeah, of course.
Members of the Viper class, all Viper builds are still classified as glass cannons and tend to lose
Oh,
against opponents with quicker acting venom, superior speed, or high enough HP to tank their attacks.
S tier, here we
Builds
go.
placing an S tier
I
over
think what's the big boy's next name? I think he's gonna be in S tier because they haven't got the name yet. The freaking henchas one. I can't remember the name.
overcome the weaknesses
Viper.
of other venom users by maxing out mobility stats and employing a variety of highly effective venom delivery techniques.
Cobra
The
kills
most
white
competitively
tiger.
viable snakes
There we
spend
go.
to
That's the
heavily
type of head I was
neurotoxic
looking
venom,
for.
Oh,
granting
yeah.
them the ability to inflict toxic damage and status effects far more quickly than lower tier venom users. While these buffs come at the cost
Are
of
they?
base
Are those
defense,
original
S-tier snakes
cobras?
are
I thought
only
most
really
snakes were
used
like
for rare
shaped
few
like that.
players with venom resistance
No.
or effective bite evasion skills. Coming up first in
Cobra.
S tier is the Cobra build. With impressive base speed,
Meerkat.
these snakes can actively chase down other players rather than having to solely rely on an ambush strategy. Variants of the Cobra build can spec into moderate aquatic and climbing proficiency, allowing for particularly well-rounded gameplay. Their fast-acting venom is mostly neurotoxic, but can have mixed toxic effects that melt through flesh and maximize the amount of pain inflicted. Even elephant players, the tankiest terrestrial build in the entire game,
Wait, they can take
be
out
taken
elephants?
down by the ridiculous amount of sheer toxic damage inflicted by a well-placed bite. While all Cobra builds
That
have
elephant
well-placed
was
phase
out.
to maximize
He's-
venom delivery, spitting Cobra players can use the only ranged attack in the
Oh.
entire snake class by spraying venom up to 2 meters through holes at the front of their fangs. This
Imagine
move has
getting
high
spat on by a
accuracy and
snake.
can permanently blind other players when used effectively. Cobra builds advertise their power by using a unique hood modification, intimidating the vast majority of players away from trying to challenge them in the first place. With enough offensive capabilities to take on an entire
Bro, he
team of
took
attackers
out
at
a whole
once,
gang
it's
of
no
Meerkat.
question that Cobras are one of the most competitively viable builds in the Snake faction.
That's
Sea
crazy.
Next
snake.
in S tier are sea snakes. With full aquatic
That's
adaptations
basically a
and
swimming
special
belt.
underwater
Come on,
sensory
man.
skills. These builds can access hard-to-reach areas to demolish even the most
Ah,
competitive
use
fish
that.
players.
Oh no, never
Their
mind.
fangs are relatively small compared to the closely related Cobra builds, but this works in conjunction with a special attack style. Their venom is some of the deadliest in the game, but causes almost no pain, meaning that other players
Ah,
may
they
not
won't even know
they've
they
been
were
hit
bitten.
before fatal toxic damage sets in.
Just like,
While they are effective at using trickster tactics to take down enemies independently, sea snake players can also hunt in teams to capitalize on their own offensive potential and compensate for their low individual HP. This build does have a bit of a high skill floor though, and inexperienced players may struggle at playing around the sea snake's defensive weaknesses. The sea snake build has a unique playstyle that can be hard to master, but with the ability to 1v1 eels and win, this build sits at the top for those who enjoy a challenge.
Black Mamba,
Final
that's
build on
it.
this tier
No,
list
that's
is the
not it.
Black Mamba.
What's the name of
That's
this?
Kobe.
Overpowered base stats
R.I.P.
for their class, including ridiculous damage and speed, the Black Mamba is by far the most competitive snake both
can't
in
remember.
terrestrial and arboreal combat situations. Their speed isn't just with respect to movement. The lethal venom of the Black Mamba takes effect extremely quickly and can decimate enemies of any size due to the high dose delivered in each bite. Black Mamba venom imposes a variety of neurological status effects, including respiratory failure and vision loss, making them one of the most feared opponents in direct combat. Mamba builds have an extremely aggressive and fast-paced playstyle that leaves little room for
dance.
counterplay, especially considering that their HP and defense stats are among the highest of any venom users.
Bro,
due to their large
defense
size.
game is on point. Look at
HP and
this.
defense stats are among the highest of any venom users due to their large size. While they don't have any unique moves to speak of, Black Mamba
Why does it not say Kobe next to Black Mamba?
Bro, man gave him the in and out.
It
was about to pull up there before the camera switched.
And do so to an exceptionally effective degree. Topping the charts with the highest DPS potential of any snake
Ah, GG,
and
man.
respectable defensive skills to boot, The Black Mamba is the undisputed ruler of snake builds. Snakes are by no means meta-defining, but it's still worth knowing how they stack up against each other and what their main strengths and weaknesses are. There's a lot more to snakes than just their general combat abilities though. How do snakes deal with cold damage? How can snakes climb trees so easily without claws or cling pads? If you're really interested in knowing all the ins and outs of the snake build, I highly recommend checking out this video sponsor, Curiosity Stream.
Thank you.
Alright guys,
TierZoo.
that was another Unorthodox reaction.
Cold.
Quite a good video to be fair. I enjoyed
Really
it.
educational.
Learned a lot about snakes.
I learned I could take out a D tier snake. I'm proud of myself.
Any snake that's in the D to F tier, shout me. It's beef.
Well, don't shout me, but if you come across
It's
each
on
other,
site.
I want to go out of my way to find them. But if you come across each
On
other,
site if I see you.
then you know.
But anyway, this has been another Unorthodox reaction.
Cool.
We hope you've enjoyed. If you're still watching with us,
You
we
know, it
appreciate
takes so
you.
long to
If you're
get
not
to that.
anymore, if you're not watching us, we still appreciate you regardless. Hope you guys stay blessed.
Like,
Keep looking
comment,
after your
subscribe,
people.
notification bell, comment suggestions in the comments below, video suggestions in the comments below, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Lovely.
In a bit.